Right now, Capitol Hill looks like a fortress. There are 20,000 National Guard troops expected to be in place for Joe Biden's inauguration. The National Mall has been closed down. The huge National Mall. Law enforcement and those National Guard troops are on alert for the possibility of another insurrection, for more violence, this time potentially with more firepower behind it.
What's up, family? This is Brianna Looks once again, and today I wanted to play a clip from CNN's Brianna Keilar, who, much like everyone within the media, has been covering the historic events of the past week since the second failed attempt at a coup ended last Wednesday. Second, because the first failed attempt were the multiple attempts to overturn the election through the courts. That didn't work, so Trump and his supporters moved to step two. Pay close attention to the strange details that have emerged and how Washington, D.C. looks more like occupied territory than the site of a country with a normal functioning government. This is an ongoing problem that is in no way over, so let us begin.
Right now, Capitol Hill looks like a fortress. There are 20,000 National Guard troops expected to be in place for Joe Biden's inauguration. The National Mall has been closed down. The huge National Mall. Law enforcement and those National Guard troops are on alert for the possibility of another insurrection, for more violence, this time potentially with more firepower behind it.
The National Mall is closed down completely, and there are going to be 20,000 National Guard soldiers in place for Inauguration Day. That alone is mind-boggling. And yes, you heard that number correctly, 20,000. So yeah, DC looks like a fortress. It looks like a ghost town with a bunch of soldiers walking around. This is what Donald Trump has turned this country into. These insurrectionists and their threats of violence are the works of domestic terrorists. Funny, so far, some of the charges that I've seen some of these people brought up on are mild. According to CNN, some are being charged with unlawful entry or violent entry. So not domestic terrorism or attempted murder. Now, reports are saying that might come later on down the road, but that hasn't happened yet. Let's continue.
There are warnings now from federal officials that extremists are now more emboldened to carry out attacks after what happened at the Capitol last week. All 50 states are being told to be on alert for possible armed protests. One official is telling CNN that the chatter is off the charts. Let's bring in CNN crime and justice correspondent Shimon Prokupecz. And Shimon, what more can you tell us about these warnings and about these fears of more violence?
Well, there's certainly a lot of fear and there's a lot of concern for what could happen because of the amount of people that are basically talking on social media about doing harm. And this is what has authorities very concerned. The head of the NYPD counterterrorism division, John Miller, said that the temperature is high right now. But they do think that because of what they're doing, law enforcement all across the country, rounding up some of these individuals, making arrests, is helping to bring some of the temperature down. He's saying that they have never seen anything like this before, the level of threat that is facing this country right now. And I just want to show you, we're at the National Mall here and kind of just give you some perspective about some of the fencing here that has gone up all around. If you look through the reflective pool here, this is all now fenced off. This is a very big part during normal times of an inauguration. This is now all fenced off. Of course, because of the pandemic, the city, the Washington, D.C. has told people to stay away. They were not going to allow people to congregate here. But certainly with the level of threat, that has increased, and there's fencing all around here now, Brianna. So we're supposed to get more fencing here, more security in the days to come. As you said, some of those National Guard troops are going to be placed around here as well.
Pay attention to this moment in history because we're living through a period people will be learning about decades from now. I said that on Twitter, and I will repeat that in this video. So a lot of important takeaways from that one clip. So for instance, all 50 states are on alert for armed protest. That sheer number of state capitals having to be on alert alone is alarming and quite disturbing. Folks, this is not a minor issue. We know that white supremacists are the biggest domestic terror threats in the country, and now years of neglect and the ignoring of right-wing militias is costing this country big time. Astute people have been warning about fascism coming to America for years now, and they were called alarmists. Now these insurrectionists are definitely getting inside help.
Federal investigators are looking into the possibility that the rioters at the Capitol may have had help to pull off their siege. It's a serious accusation, so we want to lay out where these concerns are coming from. They started with one of the leaders of a Stop the Steal group publicly claiming that he coordinated with 3 Republican lawmakers to plan the rally right before the attack.
I'm the guy who came up with the idea of January 6th when I was talking with Congressman Gosar, Congressman Andy Biggs, and Congressman Mo Brooks. It was to build momentum and pressure, and then on the day change hearts and minds of Congress peoples who weren't yet decided or saw everyone outside and said, I can't be on the other side of that mob.
Now, a spokesman for Congressman Biggs told CNN that he hasn't ever met or worked with Alexander. Congressman Brooks says he's not apologizing for inspiring patriotic Americans, and Congressman Gosar would not comment. But during the riot, he did tweet for those involved to come back if they were beyond the line. 2 law enforcement officials told CNN that this doesn't mean members of Congress and staff are under investigation, but the FBI is checking the veracity of the claims, along with over 125,000 tips that have come in.
So in this clip, you have this man who helped organize the Stop the Steal coup, who somehow is just giving interviews on TV and 5 people are dead. Go figure that one out. But he claims he worked with at least 3 members of Congress, and only one of the congressmen are even denying the claim. This is absolutely insane. So the goal was to, quote, change hearts and minds on January the 6th. And how did they do that, right? By erecting a noose and chanting hang Mike Pence, by planting pipe bombs and threatening to harm people. According to the Daily Beast, apparently not only is this Alexander character a convicted felon, but he was recorded a day prior to the events on Wednesday, riling up Trump's supporters in Washington by invoking 1776, which is a reference to the Revolutionary War, which is, again, a reference to violence, and chanting, quote, victory or death. And he's also been banned from Facebook and Twitter. Okay, so he's been cut off from the major social media platforms, according to that same article, and now he's in hiding. Okay, so don't try to play dumb now like violence wasn't part of the agenda. When you're referencing 1776 and when you're chanting victory or death, we can ascertain based on what you're saying what you plan to do. But it gets worse. Okay, watch this next clip.
In the meantime, 34 Democratic lawmakers have signed a letter raising concerns about several groups that they saw getting tours of the Capitol building the day before the attack. And this letter says that the groups, quote, appeared to be associated with the rally at the White House the following day. These tours, mind you, have not been allowed for anyone for months because of COVID protocol. And Democratic Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill, who is a former Navy helicopter pilot and federal prosecutor, went as far as calling them reconnaissance tours.
Those members of Congress who had groups coming through the Capitol that I saw on January 5th, a reconnaissance for the next day. I'm going to see that they're held accountable, and if necessary, ensure that they don't serve in Congress.
So there were these very suspicious tours that took place where lawmakers think that some of the people on the tours were involved in the insurrection itself. So those weren't just regular, ordinary tours. The key takeaway is that these tours have not been allowed for months due to COVID-19 restrictions, right? And so this is what's prompted Representative Mikey Sherrill to call them reconnaissance tours, because it's very suspect how tours that weren't allowed previously, all of a sudden you had tours being allowed the day before something like this happened, which might have something to do with why some of those people knew where to go.
And then there is this new video that indicates just how determined some of the rioters were to penetrate the Capitol. Listen to how some of the insurrectionists were communicating with one another during the attack.
Hey guys, I've been in the other room. Listen to me. In the other room on the other side of this door, right here where these feet are standing, there is a glass that if it's broken, you can drop down into a room underneath it. There's also 2 doors in the other room. One at the rear and one
What in the world is this? You can hear her saying, whoever that was speaking, we need to coordinate together if we're going to take this building. And she's pointing them in directions, telling them where to go. These people were climbing damn walls of the Capitol building. They had people with, horns giving out instructions on where to go in real time. This is what white privilege at its most extreme and out of control looks like. They had no care in the world whatsoever. None. Because they knew nothing was going to happen to them, at least not in that moment in time. I mean, I'm stunned. I know I shouldn't be, but at the same time, I don't want to become desensitized to this level of societal chaos. Solving this problem isn't going to be as easy as just passing progressive policies. While I believe that would help, the bigger problem is weaponized propaganda and a political faction in America turning to violence because they don't want to have a multiracial nation where they have to share power with black and brown people. Okay, Medicare for all ain't fixing that, and neither is a UBI, because a lot of people who were there last week and a lot of the people planning to do more in the future are part of the bourgeoisie class. Okay. They're not all, impoverished workers. I mean, I'm sure there's an element of that in the group, but a lot of these people are owners, or they're striving to be capitalistic owners. This is an element of the white capitalist owner class, people who have the money to spend on thousands of dollars on guns and travel for hotel tickets and things like that, who have nationalistic leanings, okay, who are the most supportive of Trump. I think I've given you a lot to think about, and in the coming days and weeks, be prepared for the potential worst. My name is Brian Lewis. Make sure you share this video, like the video, and subscribe, and leave a comment down below.